The most sophisticated piece of machinery ever created is not in orbit. It is a rock purified to 9/9 purity, engraved with patterns 10,000 times thinner than a human hair, using lasers the size of a bus. It controls the global economy, military power, and your daily life. But its Achilles heel is a war over industrial gases, Japanese chemicals, and ultra-pure water thousands of miles away. The machine that makes all of this possible is called the ASML EUV. It weighs 180 metric tons. It costs $200 million. Only one company on Earth can build it. A modern Apple or Nvidia processor contains more than 100 billion transistors packed into an area the size of a fingernail. Building the factory that produces that chip costs more than $20 billion, the equivalent of 3 nuclear power plants. Every nanometer gained in miniaturization requires years of research and tens of billions in investment. Moore's law, which promised to double density every 2 years for free, has become the most expensive promise in technology history. The 3 nanometer transistor produced by TSMC has a gate only 10 to 12 atoms thick. At that scale, quantum physics stops being an academic abstraction and becomes the engineer's primary enemy. Electrons simply tunnel through barriers, creating leakage currents that destroy efficiency. More critically, the cost per transistor stopped falling around 28 nanometers. For the first time in 70 years, making them smaller no longer makes them cheaper. A leading-edge semiconductor fab consumes the equivalent electricity of a city of 100,000 people, running 24 hours a day. The process requires perfectly stable temperatures, near-zero vibrations, and clean room standards 1,000 times more stringent than a surgical theater. The energy cost is so brutal that many fabs must build their own on-site power generation infrastructure within the campus itself. Every modern chip requires more than 80 individual photomasks, each carrying the precise circuit patterns for that layer. A single mask set costs more than $10 million and is manufactured by just 2 companies in the world, Toppen and Photronics. The second choke point is ultra-pure water. A leading-edge fab consumes 15 million liters per day, processed to purity levels exceeding pharmaceutical-grade distilled water. That purification infrastructure must be built inside the plant itself. It cannot be purchased off the shelf. The third choke point is noble gases. Before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, that country supplied 70% of the neon used in global lithography. A single missile strike on the right plant could have halted global chip production for months. The fourth choke point bears the name of a Japanese condiment company, Ajinomoto. Its ABF film is the substrate that connects stacked chips in advanced packaging. No validated alternative exists on the market. The fifth is KLA, a Silicon Valley firm with a virtual monopoly on sub-nanometer metrology instruments that certify the quality of every wafer produced. If you can't make the chip smaller, make it smarter. That is the philosophy behind chiplets. Instead of engraving all circuits onto a single piece of silicon, multiple specialized chips are fabricated separately and assembled into one package. AMD pioneered this with its Zen 2 architecture, connecting CPU chiplets with a memory chip using high-speed interconnects. The success was so decisive that Intel, AMD, ARM, and Google formed the UCIe consortium to standardize connectors between chiplets, just as the industry once standardized USB decades ago. But the chiplet solution has created a new choke point. Advanced assembly of these multi-chip packages requires packaging technology mastered only by TSMC and ASE in Taiwan. The geopolitical dependency is not eliminated. It is merely displaced. The geopolitics of silicon has an infinite capacity for regeneration. Governments worldwide understand the stakes. The United States passed the CHIPS Act, committing $52.7 billion to subsidize factories on American soil. Europe responded with the European CHIPS Act, 43 billion euros. China has invested more than $150 billion in its semiconductor industry since 2014. This is not merely a trade war, it is a civilizational race. The nation that controls leading-edge chip manufacturing in 2035 will control artificial intelligence, weapon systems, and the digital infrastructure of the 21st century. Silicon has competitors on the horizon: silicon carbide for high power, gallium nitride for radio frequency, graphene for nodes beyond 1 nanometer, but none is ready to replace silicon in general-purpose computing. The post-silicon era has not arrived. What has arrived is the era in which the mineral that most defines human power no longer scales for free. Whoever solves that physical economic puzzle will define the 21st century.